Blake Lively has ripped Perez Hilton a new one in court filings today, and I'm not mad about it. This is the headline that's just come out. Blake Lively slams Perez Hilton in court, says he's not a journalist. If you're not familiar with the situation, Blake Lively is currently suing Justin Baldoni for alleged sexual harassment on the set of It Ends With Us, as well as a PR smear campaign and retaliation. Perez Hilton has centered himself directly in the drama. According to a new filing by Blake Lively's team, Perez Hilton has been working directly with Justin Baldoni's team to upload content on their behalf. So it starts out by saying, Perez Hilton, an individual who, according to defendants, the agency group at TAG, which is Melissa Nathan, Justin Baldoni's PR rep, and this name is redacted. We're assuming that it is probably Brian Friedman because there has already been information in the court dockets stating that Perez Hilton and Brian Friedman had been in contact, has seeded, generated, created, or influenced social media content or provided related digital or social media services directly or indirectly at the request of or on behalf of any Wayfair party and their agents or affiliates. Now, before you say this is normal for online creators, it actually isn't. It turns out, according to this filing, he didn't reach out to Blake Lively's team. The only team he did reach out to was Justin Baldoni's. So the only things he's been posting on his page are things that Team Baldoni has asked him to post. The filing goes on to say, the specific individual who has acted at the request of or on behalf of the Wayfair defendants is Perez Hilton, a social media personality who has described himself as the original influencer. Since August of 2024, Mr. Hilton has created more than 500 pieces of video content about Miss Lively, almost entirely disparaging, and about the same number of posts of sensationalized headlines. He has declared Miss Lively's allegations of retaliation non-existent and labeled Miss Lively a bully who lies and is trying to silence Justin Baldoni. Mr. Hilton's videos are punctuated by name-calling Miss Lively, coining mocking terms for her, including, and I'm not going to read these names because I think they're disgusting, and I'm pretty sure he just got them off ChatGPT anyway. Through his motion, Mr. Hilton seeks to preclude Miss Lively from learning which pieces of the avalanche of derogatory content described above was created at the request of or on behalf of the Wayfair defendants. Just a reminder of Perez Hilton's shady past. He actually became popular online or well-known online because of how mean he was. He was an online celebrity gossiper and still is, but he was known for his online bullying tactics, calling out celebrities, outing gay celebrities, going after Britney Spears, as well as his name calling. A lot of people have wondered why Perez Hilton has a gazillion TikTok accounts and constantly keeps popping up. Well, it's because he was actually banned for life from the app in 2020, and he was absolutely devastated. He had been posting nasty comments on celebrities' pages, including Charli D'Amelio, and he ended up getting kicked off the app for it. For the last 5 or 10 years, he's been trying to make himself relevant again online after being basically kicked out of Hollywood and kicked out of the online gossip world because of how mean and spiteful he was. He's done a lot of interviews in the last 5 years talking about how much he regrets how mean he was and that if he could take it back, he would, and that he understands that people are never going to get over this and never going to forget it. In one interview, he even went as far as to say he was comparing his nastiness online to a drug addiction. He said, I was a drug addict and attention was my drug. I knew what I was doing was bad and I kept doing it and I kept being rewarded for it. During an interview with Good Morning Britain, he said, I regret a lot or most of what I said about Britney. Thankfully, hopefully, many of us get older and wiser. In 2007, you may remember he became infamous for going after Britney Spears, calling her an unfit mother. He also made t-shirts written with the message, why couldn't it be Britney, after Heath Ledger passed away in 2008. In another interview in 2020, he went on to say how he never needed to be so cruel and he regretted everything he had done and said and wished he had been kinder. He went on to talk about meeting Ariana Grande in 2011 and how he was jealous because she didn't choose him to be her manager, and so every chance he got, he would rake her over the coals in his blog. Over the years, he has been chewed out by a ton of celebrities, including Nicole Richie and, of course, Mila. In 2018, she wrote and said, to me, he was the first person that created ugly news that literally just spread filth. It was just mean, and so it allowed people to be mean. Whole concepts of trolling didn't exist prior to his blog. In 2010, he repeatedly referred to Christina Aguilera as Floptina because he was trying to damage her sales, and he says he's remorseful for this. This is a quote from him. I have a ton of regrets, particularly because I now see that I never needed to be so mean or cruel. One of the many things I regret is that I hurt so many people by giving them nasty nicknames, and above all, that I was unkind to the children of celebrities. After trying to make himself look better in a video supporting LGBTQ, he said this: "The response I got truly shook me to my core. Almost every comment said, 'You're a hypocrite, you're a bully, you're part of the problem.' I knew a lot of people didn't like me before then, but I was living in my own little bubble. I had brainwashed myself into saying things like, if people don't like what I'm writing, then they shouldn't read it. Or Perez is just a character. These people don't know the real me." But at that point I said, wow, I need to take ownership of what is happening here and what I'm doing. Fast forward 5 years later, he is back in the headlights for drama once again. And just a reminder of the names he's calling Blake Lively. It appears this man has learned nothing. Blake goes on to say that Tag let her know that they were in contact with Perez Hilton. Perez hasn't denied this, and to this date, she has still not been able to receive those communications from Wayfair, so she has done a motion to compel on them as well, but she also wants these documents from Perez Hilton. The footnotes in these court documents are always extremely interesting. Now, this is the first footnote. This is on page 2, and it talks about the subpoena that she issued to the content creators that were under the attorney's eyes only. So the one to Candace Owens, the one to Popcorn Planet Andy Signor, and the one to Perez Hilton. The Wayfair defendants fiercely resisted even identifying the relevant content creators, doing so only after being ordered by the court. The Wayfair defendants next created the circumstance for a media firestorm over content creator discovery by designating their responses AEO, making it impossible for Ms. Lively to provide context for why she was subpoenaing Mr. Hilton and the others. She says she wasn't able to let them know that their names were specifically listed by Wayfair as being a part of this. And it created this online fodder where they used their huge platforms to talk about the outrage they had, that they were being targeted, that this was them being silenced when in fact they weren't. She adds at the bottom and says because Wayfair has not given her a single phone record, text message, email, or any other written record of any communications with Mr. Hilton, that she is now being hindered at every turn with them, and she's had to again go after them with a motion to compel. And she says Mr. Hilton should not be able to point back to them as the only source from whom Miss Lively should be permitted to seek this information. Perez Hilton allegedly would like to consider himself a journalist, and he's trying to say he has reporter's privilege in this, which of course is not the case. Now, Blake Lively in this notes that he does not call himself a reporter on any of his websites or various platforms. Mr. Hilton does not hold himself out as operating as an independent journalist, nor does he purport to follow any of the tenets of independent journalism, such as, for example, diligently seeking subjects of news coverage to allow them to respond to criticism or labeling advocacy and commentary. One extremely point is this. The majority of the content Mr. Hilton posts about Miss Lively are disparaging, published without reaching out to Miss Lively's representatives for comment or response, and generally regurgitate messaging that appears to be prepared by others and ChatGPT. They also added some of the titles of his videos so you can see just how bad they are towards Blake. It starts off, Blake Lively's non-existent smear campaign falls apart. Blake Lively is so unethical. Blake Lively the bully. Justin Baldoni exposes new Blake Lively lies. This is savage, and the list goes on. And then again, they list the names that he's been calling her. Another interesting footnote here says, importantly, Mr. Hilton's comments exactly mirror the 4 themes of character assassination that the Wayfair Defendants Counsel, Brian Friedman, has improperly advanced since the inception of this case, as set forth in Miss Lively's recently filed motion for sanctions in violation of Rule 3.6. They note that despite Melissa Nathan from TAG, the crisis manager, telling her that they've been in contact with Perez Hilton, she said they haven't received any communications yet from him. However, she says that there are threads that she produced that indicate that the Wayfair defendants were coordinating with Mr. Hilton during the height of the retaliation campaign. They also included a list of the 7 things they were asking for from Perez's subpoena. The first one was all documents and communications concerning any agreements that he would have from May 1st to 2024 with anything about Blake or Ryan, etc. The second one was any agreements he may have. The third one says all documents and communications regarding your digital, online, content creator, or influencer services or strategies concerning anything to do with Blake, etc. as well. And it says, for the avoidance of doubt, this request includes circumstances in which any Wayfarer defendant or their counsel or anyone acting on their behalf provided you with any information that you included or relied on in any of your content. The next one is any documents or communications concerning statements or talking points, scripts, theories, assumptions, questions, advertisement. They list it all. Number 5 is about payment. It says all documents or communications about concerning any payments, gifts, favors, anything like that related to them. And number 6 is all documents and communications reflecting or concerning any statements or drafts provided to you by any of the Wayfarer defendants or their counsel. And it lists, of course, anyone in connection with the Google document or co-working platform. And the last one, it's simple. Number 7, any communications you had with Wayfarer about us. I really can't wait for him to provide all of these documents. He has been bragging about this situation for weeks now. He goes on Reddit and goes on about how bad he's being in his letters to the judge, and they are so disrespectfully written. But anytime someone asks him what kind of content he had with them or what did he post in regards to them, he beats around the bush and he won't answer. He actually emailed Blake's counsel asking for the subpoena and then goes on in this big rage about how mad he is that he got it and how he's being silenced and everybody should be up in arms. Anyway, on July 21st, he emails all the counsel stating that he intended to proceed pro se, which means without a lawyer. And it says he's not indigent. And the fact that he has previously claimed that he was represented by opposing counsel's lead attorney, Mr. Friedman. How many times have we heard him brag that Mr. Friedman is his attorney? And that he had objections and concerns about whether the subpoena complies with legal standards. So Blake's team says they wrote him back and they said to him, we'd be more than willing to hear any concerns, and they requested Mr. Hilton put them in writing. He writes back and all he states was that it's his understanding that the subpoena is not legally sound. So they write back and they're like, okay, well, can you give us legal basis and supporting authority of this? And he writes back and says, I'm just going to file a motion to quash. Perez then makes a whole video about how he's going to file his motion to quash and that he does it in Nevada so that Judge Lyman, who he calls biased and a terrible judge, won't be overseeing his case. Now, Blake specifically targets that in this and says, doesn't matter. They're going to fight it. They're going to file their opposition in Nevada, but they're also going to request that it be transferred back to the New York docket where it's supposed to be anyway, because that's where all of his other filings were. Another thing he tried to do, he wanted to file and seek relief on behalf of other non-parties. And basically this just says you can't do that. He also wanted the judge to make it so that Blake Lively had to get approval before filing third-party subpoenas. And again, he can't really do that. And they basically said that he didn't meet the burden for this to show good cause, why Blake Lively can't subpoena people for her evidence. In his filing, Perez calls the subpoena sweeping, overly broad, and a fishing expedition. And Blake's team says, but Mr. Hilton does not explain, nor could he, why it is improper for Ms. Lively to seek information from a content creator who some of the Wayfarer defendants admit created content or provided services on their behalf. This one is also extremely good. Now, I know a lot of creators have been talking about this, but in his filing, he tried to list court examples of situations that took place, and this is what Blake's team said about that. None of the cases Mr. Hilton cites in the motion relate at all to the type of protective order he seeks. They also go on to note here that one of the cases he lists, this legal team couldn't even find it. They don't even think it exists. ChatGPT once again. And then they note down here saying, although AI tools can make legal work more efficient, they also can hallucinate. That is, they produce blatantly incorrect information that on its face appears truthful. This footnote is also extremely interesting. This one talks about the content creators that were included in the subpoena to Google, TikTok, and X. We don't know why they were chosen. We're assuming there's a reason, but listen to what she writes. As the court is aware, Ms. Lively issued third-party subpoenas to discover connections between the Wayfair defendants and specific content dissemination through platforms such as YouTube and X, and has withdrawn certain of those requests after conferrals, reviewing motions to quash, and or other public information. There is nothing harassing or improper of such a process. What I found interesting about this was the wording. It specifically says that they issued this to find connections between Wayfair and specific content dissemination. So I'm wondering now if all these creators shared a certain piece of content that they know came from Wayfair. It's what it looks like anyway from this writing, that it's something to do with the content they shared. Noting again, Mr. Hilton does not appear to challenge that the subpoena seeks relevant information, nor does he address the defendant's concession that he directly or indirectly provided the Wayfair defendants with content or related services at their request. Now we're getting into the good stuff, that Perez Hilton is not a journalist. This is extremely important because there are a lot of content creators, influencers who are trying to claim journalistic privilege, and this is not the case. Popcorn Planet, Candace Owens, Perez Hilton, they are not journalists, and this explains why. Now, this is the section where it says Perez Hilton is not a journalist. He is not protected by reporter privilege. Neither would Candace Owens or Andy Signor from Popcorn Planet or me. We're just influencers. He calls himself a celebrity gossip, an influencer, not a journalist. And this is why. The subpoena does not seek material covered by any applicable journalist privilege. Mr. Hilton was not acting as a professional journalist, like he claims, when he generated the materials sought. Mr. Hilton must demonstrate that he was acting in his capacity as a professional journalist, meaning, and here's the definition of a professional journalist, engaged in gathering, preparing, collecting, writing, editing, filming, taping, or photographing of news intended for a newspaper, magazine, news agency, press association, or wire service, or other professional medium or agency which has as one of its regular functions the processing and researching of news intended for dissemination to the public. AKA gossip, an influencer. He is not a journalist, nor is Candace Owens, Andy Signor. None of us are journalists. We do not get journalistic privilege. We are influencers. He is a gossip bag. And that's exactly what he says on his pages. This says, Mr. Hilton does not identify himself as a journalist on any of his platforms, but rather self-describes as an influencer, which the definition is a person who is able to generate interest in something, such as a consumer product, by posting about it on social media. Tag relied on Mr. Hilton in his capacity as an influencer to seed, generate, create, or influence content or provide digital or social media services directly or indirectly at the request of or on behalf of any Wayfair party or their agents or affiliates. Creating for-profit content based on its beneficial value to Mr. Hilton's friends and allies, including contractual counterparties, rather than its newsworthiness, strongly weighs against finding that Mr. Hilton was acting in the capacity as a professional journalist while communicating with the Wayfair defendants. They also note in the footnotes that Mr. Hilton has to demonstrate that he's an actual professional journalist, and it doesn't matter if it's going to be filed in New York or Nevada, it's the same in either state. If you want to learn more about what a journalist actually is, they do continue to give some more information on that in their filing as well. Here, the information Ms. Lively seeks from Mr. Hilton is entirely aimed at his commercial activities that fall outside of the processing and researching of news. Mr. Hilton is in the business of shaping narratives for clicks and profits, not informing the public. Finally, the third prong is met because Ms. Lively has been attempting to obtain the Wayfair defendants' communications with content creators like Mr. Hilton for nearly 6 months. The Wayfair defendants have, at every turn, refused to provide such information voluntarily and insisted that Ms. Lively expend considerable resources fighting objections and litigating her entitlement to these communications. To date, Ms. Lively has received virtually no communications with content creators and none with Mr. Hilton, despite the fact that neither Mr. Hilton nor the Wayfair defendants have denied their existence. None of the Wayfair defendants have produced any signal communications, notwithstanding admissions to using, and then it's redacted, but look what comes next, which leads to the strong possibility that the Wayfair defendants have deleted, destroyed, or lost evidence. The refusal of the Wayfair defendants to produce, or perhaps to retain, such communications combined with this motion amounts to a shell game that risks depriving Miss Lively from discovering pertinent information about the retaliation scheme. They go on to say that time is now running out. It says, despite filing a motion to compel the production of such information, time is running low with document discovery 10 days from closing. Under these circumstances, there's no basis for requiring Miss Lively to continue incurring expenses attempting to identify what party or third party has possession, custody, or control of the communications and compel their production in multiple courts when there is no question that Mr. Hilton possesses them. Bottom line, the court should compel Mr. Hilton to respond to and produce materials responsive to the subpoena. Miss Lively respectfully requests that the court compel Mr. Hilton to respond to the subpoena in full within 7 days of entry of an order. For the reasons discussed above, all the arguments advanced by Mr. Hilton fail. Accordingly, Mr. Hilton must produce all material responsive to the subpoena other than those subject to another applicable privilege, and as to any withheld materials, a privilege log that complies with the federal rules. In the event that the court grants Miss Lively's cross motion to compel, it should order Mr. Hilton to pay the attorney fees required to compel such discovery. If the judge grants that, it could mean that Perez Hilton has to pay Blake Lively's attorney fees for him trying to fight this subpoena. In the meantime, the judge is not messing around here. Time is of the essence. He has already filed a response to Blake Lively saying they had to send everything to Perez Hilton, and they did do that. Now, I believe some of that stuff is going to be unsealed, so now we're going to have to wait and see if he decides to post it all in videos or up on Reddit for everyone to see. I think if he does, he's going to be in a lot more trouble with the courts. As for Justin Baldoni's team, as you know, Blake Lively had to file a 30-some page document saying all the things that Justin Baldoni's team has left out of discovery, emails, text messages, etc., that they know that Justin's team has and they just didn't give. So they filed a letter asking for an extension. They were supposed to have a response by August 6th. They're asking it to be extended to August 11th. They actually noted in the footnote that they did a meet and confer with Blake's team, who did say that they could have an extra 4 days for service, but they claim that's not enough and they want 7. Now remember, this is despite the fact that Blake issued a subpoena for all of this information 6 months ago to them. They've had 6 months to gather all of this evidence in discovery and hand it over, and they haven't. It'll be interesting to see what the judge says about this, if he grants them that extension or if he just gives them a few more days. As we know, we only have 10 more days for discovery, and then hopefully more things will be on the docket for us to be able to read through. For right now, it does not look like he's going to be winning his case at all, and he may even be losing bigger by having to pay Blake's legal fees.